Good evening, everyone. I think it's now 1 minute past 6, so let's get started. So welcome to Town Hall. For those of you who haven't been here, and for those of you that I haven't met, my name's Anna Reynolds and I'm the Lord Mayor of Hobart. Welcome to the 2021-22 Annual General Meeting. Obviously this is for the financial year June 21 through to July 21, to June 22. So I would like to advise everyone that we are recording this meeting and it's being live streamed via our YouTube channel. And in recognition of the deep history and culture of Nipaluna Hobart, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and acknowledge the determination and resilience of the contemporary Aboriginal community, the Palawa, who continue to be the custodians of this land. And I'd like to recognise any Aboriginal people here in the room tonight and pay my respect to elders past and present. So my fellow elected members, the CEO, Kelly Grigsby, staff and community members, I thank you for attending tonight's meeting, and I would like to acknowledge and introduce for you all of our elected members that are here tonight. Starting, they might stand up and give a wave. Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Helen Burnett, Alderman Marty Zuko, Councillor Bill Harvey, Alderman Simon Barakis, Councillor Mike Dutta, Councillor Dr Zelinda Sherlock, Councillor John Kelly, Councillor Louise Elliott, Alderman Louise Bloomfield, Councillor Ryan Posselt, and Councillor Ben Lohberger. There are a number of apologies from invited guests for tonight, and they will be listed in the minutes of tonight's meeting. Are there any further apologies for tonight's meeting that anyone would like registered? There being none, we'll move on to the minutes of the 2020-21 annual AGM that was conducted on the 22nd of November 2021. The minutes are submitted in your pack. Are in your pack. If someone would like to move a motion to adopt the minutes, particularly if moved by Alderman Barakis, seconded by Councillor Dutta. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. So I'll just run through the meeting procedures. The meeting procedures associated with the conduct of an annual general meeting are attached to the agenda. The Council is required to conduct an annual general meeting annually, and the Council is required to adopt its annual report outlining its financial performance and the outcomes of the Council for the year in review. The proceedings for this evening will involve a short address by myself, which will outline some of the key achievements of the City of Hobart in the past year. We'll also hear from our Children's Mayor winner for this year, Finn Goddard from the Lansdowne Crescent Primary School, and also our Children's Deputy Mayor, Evie Bresnan, from the Sandy Bay Infant School, and they're both with us tonight, and we'll hear from them after I've spoken. Then there'll be an opportunity provided for the members of the community or anyone to ask questions or move motions. In the interests of allowing everyone the opportunity to ask a question that wants to, we ask that where you may have multiple questions that you prioritise these by your most important, as we might not have time to take all questions and provide responses. And while staff will attempt to provide a response to all questions taken, we may need to take some of them on notice, and if that occurs, that'll be like any council meeting. There'll be provided in writing and then attached to the minutes of this meeting. So, let's get started. Welcome. As I said, the past year has been somewhat of a transition year for the city as we moved out of the COVID-19 pandemic response phase into long-term recovery. 2021, which was our most significant COVID-impacted year, saw us take quite drastic measures, including significant budget cuts to deal with the immediate impacts of the pandemic. So in 2021-22, we entered into a long-term strategy to rebuild services and financial sustainability. So with many Hobart businesses that were still struggling with the impacts of the pandemic-induced lockdowns on the mainland, still up until late 2021 and early 2022, I think that was the surprise end of the pandemic, where we all thought it was all over, and then we had another massive lockdowns, particularly in New South Wales and Victoria in early 2022. So as part of that, we introduced a suite of support measures to assist the business sector, and it was clear many businesses were doing it tough, as it was really difficult to predict how long the situation was going to last. So the Council approved a support package that included one-on-one advice and support through a new business concierge service, rent relief for city-owned premises and reduced fees, short-term adjustments to parking rates, facilitation of industry-specific roundtables, and a campaign to draw workers back into the city to support CBD traders. So in terms of financial position, the Council ended the year with a surplus of $5.636 million, and this was from revenue of $162 million. We invested in $4.882 million in new assets, and $18.798 million in replacement of worn-out assets. New borrowings of $5 million were taken out, and $9.855 million in existing debt was repaid. It is important to understand that taking out loans for capital works projects that are of strategic significance is legitimate and responsible financial management. Borrowing for infrastructure is how all governments, businesses and even households invest in important upgrades. Our capital works projects will be enjoyed by populations of the future. So footpaths, for example, have a lifespan of up to 85 years, roads 100 years, toilets up to 100 years, and stormwater upgrades up to 134 years. So it is appropriate that those future generations who receive the benefits over the lifetime of these community assets help to fund them. Council has $1.6 billion in physical assets, and it's important that each generation sustains the quality of these through investing in their maintenance, rather than allowing them to deteriorate and become a really significant financial drain through higher rates. In Tasmania, the Auditor-General has established a benchmark of net financial liabilities ratio for local government of between 0 and 50%. So this ratio indicates the extent to which net liabilities, including debt, can be met by operating income. The city's net financial liabilities ratio at June 2022 was 23.9%, which is well within the ratios considered as responsible by the Auditor-General. So development in Hobart. Interest in development in Hobart continued in 2021-22 with 696 planning permits issued to the value of $305 million. It is important to note, of course, that in some, and if often many cases, planning approvals can take time to translate into building approvals and then ultimately dwellings and buildings out of the ground. An applicant has up to 6 years following planning approval to obtain building approval and commence construction, and a further year to complete building work. Our capital works program saw $23 million spent, with completion or substantial progress made on a range of projects, including traffic management projects, road resurfacing, new paths and trails, improvements in stormwater drainage and lighting, upgrades to buildings and facilities, new security infrastructure, and upgrades to parks and playgrounds. So just quickly, as some of the more significant or interesting projects was the Long Beach toilets in Sandy Bay. So we replaced an old, rather boring old toilet block at the Long Beach with fully accessible toilets and 3 external wash basins and showers, and through clever design and using the natural rise of the park, or a rise in the park, we have also been able to create a new open air stage that is very helpful for events that occur down there. And that's actually being used quite a lot by the Hobart Twilight Market. Another really important project was the fully accessible lift at the North Hobart Oval. This was done in conjunction with the North Hobart Football Club and support from I think it was the federal and state government, a fully accessible lift at the Doug Place to Stand for people with disability or people who simply can't climb. I think it's 3 flights of stairs, and this was a major oversight, I guess, when the building was first constructed, but obviously it was in a different era when there wasn't as much consideration of accessibility. So it's now great, a fantastic new part of that facility. Huon Road, uphill passing lanes. We completed a series of passing lanes on Huon Road to allow motorists to safely overtake slower moving uphill cyclists, which is a very popular road for cyclists to go up Kunyanyi, Mount Wellington. So it's not completely a cycle, you wouldn't call it a cycle lane, but it certainly has made the road a lot safer. Another mountain project was the Pinnacle Road Guardrail Replacement Stage 1. So to meet Australian safety standards, we installed 1.5 kilometres of galvanised barrier guardrail on the Pinnacle from the springs to the lower Sawmill trailhead, replacing old posts and guide ropes which were originally installed in the 1930s. And I seem to recall that the guide ropes came originally from Melbourne, from the Melbourne trams or something. So they were lovely looking, but completely unsafe. And we made sure that the old posts and guide ropes will be retained because they were of very significant age and significant part of the mountain's heritage. Also on the mountain, we completed stage 1 of our track restoration project for this major walking route. Years of foot traffic and harsh mountain weather had eroded parts of the zigzag track, and digging out the original surface soil and leaving a patchwork of rocks that was very difficult to navigate. So we've restored 200 metres of the stonework above the Pinnacle track intersection to repair erosion and make it safer for walkers and runners. We undertook important strategic planning work, including the endorsement of our bushfire management strategy, outlining the city's operational and strategic plans for protection from the impact of bushfire, which is considered our single greatest threat to the Hobart area. And we know from the past how devastating bushfires can be. The strategy includes 48 actions and an annual budget of approximately $1.9 million to reduce the risks and potential impacts of a major bushfire across the next decade. And it draws importantly from national findings and recommendations from the Royal Commission into National Natural Disaster Arrangements and experiences from the Tasmanian fires in 2016 and 19. There were a number of other notable council decisions, including a 12-month trial of the e-scooter hire services in Hobart to help reduce traffic congestion in the city and encourage more sustainable transport solutions. As the Planning Authority, Council acknowledged the non-compliant aspects of the planning proposal for a cable car on Kunyanyi Mount Wellington and voted to refuse that application. And I've just got to also call out for the staff who had to process, I think it was 10,000 or 12,000 representations. All of those representations were processed and put into an electronic format and made available for elected members. And it was an incredible task to manage such a huge planning application process, and the staff did a fantastic job. Council also agreed to pursue actions to limit the number of new short-stay visitor accommodation planning permits, and although that one's still in play, there was a lot of work and discussions around the council table last year as part of that process because of the significant concern about the impact on the long-term rental market in Hobart. So switching off the on-street parking meters in North Hobart was another decision made while improvements are made to the precinct. We also agreed to conduct a public meeting in response to a petition regarding the relocation of UTAS from its Sandy Bay campus into the Hobart CBD, and agreed to support and fund the running of an elector poll, many of which I'm sure you were all voters in that elector poll. Another notable piece of work was the work we undertook for the Crowther Reinterpreted project. So this involved temporary artworks during the financial year that were displayed, and there was extensive consultation and public feedback as part of that Crowther Reinterpreted project. A discussion paper addressing the future needs of Hobart City was released for public consultation as part of Phase 2 of a community engagement for the Central Hobart Precinct Structure Plan, which is a framework for future development and service provision for the 64 blocks of our inner Hobart area. And the discussion paper is the first step in developing a 20-year plan to create 5 individual community precincts within Central Hobart, and it needs to consider population economic trends, city shaping ideas and directions that will guide the growth of the planning for the next 20 years for Central Hobart. The Hobart's inaugural Children's Mayor and Deputy Mayor were elected following a competition to put forward ideas for Hobart's future as part of Children's Week in 2021. Students from schools across the city were invited to write their own manifestos as to what they would do if they were given the role of Lord Mayor of Hobart. In 2021, the winning manifesto was titled Saving the Earth on Two Wheels, and it encouraged a greater focus on active transport, and you'll hear from the folks, the children involved in the 2022 program after I've spoken. Council's Food and Organics and Garden Organics Waste Service was settling after its launch the year earlier, and it collected approximately 4,000 tonnes of organic material, and that translates into 277 rubbish trucks worth in this financial year. So there are now 15,000 Hobart households using this service, and there was a 30% increase in the volume collected this year. So Council continued to deliver a diverse range of community-based programs and initiatives that promoted health and well-being and activated the city, including Anti-Poverty Week. The YARC Gallery was opened with at the Youth Arts and Recreation Centre. The Still Gardening program, which has now been running for many years and is very popular. Arts, educational, health and social programs and events at both Mathers and Criterion House. the Ability to Create All Ability Art Exhibition, the expansion of the Busking and Street Performance Program, Japan Children's Day celebration, the Healthy Hobart program. So a whole range of those really interesting programs to engage with our community. Council received several awards throughout the year, including the Planning Institute Australia Technology and Digital Innovation Award for the Smarter Hobart Challenge Bus Shelter and Digital Interface Design. That's a mouthful, isn't it? They also received an award for the Parks and Leisure Australia Strategic and Master Planning 22 Award, and that was for the Victoria-Tasmania region for the Riding the Mountain Plan, which is a mountain bike plan for the mountain. And 2 awards at the Tasmanian Architecture Awards for the new toilet facilities at Long Beach and Sandy Bay that I talked about earlier. So in closing, I'd like to extend sincere thank you to all of the residents, community groups, local businesses and volunteers at the City of Hobart. I also wish to thank my elected member colleagues for their contribution over the past 12 months and acknowledge the commitment and dedication of the Council during the reporting period. The elected members who were not returned at the most recent election. So they were Alderman Jeff Briscoe, Alderman Damon Thomas, Councillor Jax Fox and Councillor Will Coates. Thank you so much to those 4 elected members for serving the Hobart community, and I also should just note that Alderman Peter Sexton chose not to recontest his seat, so he's also moved on to other work in the community. I'd also like to thank our CEO and her executive leadership team who are all here tonight. Thank you for your commitment and your dedication and professionalism in delivering for our community. Obviously, it is largely the staff that are the ones that do all the work, and the elected members get to stand up and talk about it and obviously make key decisions at key times. But in terms of the quality of the work and the professionalism with which it's delivered, it's really all of our staff and the ELT and the CEO that really need to take the credit. So I think we could give them a round of applause with that. So now it gives me great pleasure to talk about the 2022 Children's Mayor Program as part of Children's Week activities. This is the second year that we have run the program. Hobart schools, primary schools only, were invited to participate. The idea of this program is to provide more engagement and learning opportunities for primary school children and giving them a greater understanding of the work of a local government and the democratic process more broadly. So students of Hobart were invited to make a submission or a manifesto saying what they would like to do. We received, I forget how many submissions we received, but from about 10 schools, I think it was. And the Children's Commissioner, the Commissioner for Children and Young People joined a panel comprising of myself, the Deputy Lord Mayor and ELT staff to select the winning entries. So the winning students have joined us this afternoon and they've also met with council officers to talk about their ideas and hear about what council's doing already in this space and what ideas might be possible from their manifestos. So in a minute I'll introduce our Children's Mayor and our Children's Deputy Mayor, but I also want to acknowledge in the room we have Darcy Holland from Lena Valley Primary School for her idea on homelessness pods, and Darcy received a highly commended award. And Hamish Maguire from St Virgil's, who also received a highly commended for his idea about EV charging stations. So both Darcy and Hamish are with us tonight. But now I'd like to introduce Finn Goddard, Year 6 from Lansdowne Crescent Primary School. And Finn is actually going to come forward and read his idea to us. So please welcome Finn.
If I was Lord Mayor of the City of Hobart, I would want to see more green spaces and plants in our city, as a lot of the space is taken up by ugly concrete. For example, we could have plants climbing up drain pipes and walls that would otherwise be left bare, flower boxes on windowsills, baskets hanging from balconies, and more trees in the inner areas of Hobart. There could be whole gardens on the unused roofs of buildings, and more plants in the city, and more parks in the city, and plants lining the footpaths. There could also be an award for the building with the most greenery on it, or the smartest use of plants. Nobody wants their city to be a concrete jungle, and this idea could help solve that problem. My idea will help sequester harmful gases such as CO2, as plants absorb it when they photosynthesize. So having plants all around the city would not only make the air cleaner, but also help reduce global warming at the same time. Another reason for having more vegetation in the city is that it would provide more calm spaces for people to sit down and relax, socialise and reduce stress, which could increase the well-being of many who live in the city of Hobart. This would also make the city a lot nicer and could increase tourism, which would generate more money that could be put towards many useful causes like charities or expanding national parks. Others can help by greening up their homes or backyards, whether it's just simply buying a couple of plant pots and planting some low-maintenance greens like succulents, herbs or cacti in their homes, or starting a full-blown garden in any available space. These spaces could include edible plants like carrots, asparagus, or more leafy things like spinach and lettuce. Children could be given small packets of flower seeds to sprinkle in the cracks of the pavement, which would create small bursts of colour on the footpaths. Anybody can help out, from young to old, and it'd be amazing fun as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Finn. Has anyone got a question for Finn about his proposal?
Thanks, Finn. Great idea. I support it fully. What I'd like to know from you, though, is what has your school been doing to show us how to do this?
Well, recently the grade 1s at our school have been planting a pollinator sanctuary garden outside their classroom. Yeah.
That's for insect garden.
Yeah, and birds.
Any other questions for our children's mayor? All right, thank you so much, Finn. Now we also have Evie here. Is Evie going to use? Oh, she'd like to do it in person. Great, lovely. Because we also did a video for Evie. So Evie is a Year 2 student with the Sandy Bay Infant School.
As Lord Mayor of the City of Hobart, I would say the streets would be rainbow colours all around the city, and it would look beautiful. No one would want to litter on it. It would be really beautiful of the paintings in the streets, because I want to make the world more colourful. My idea will help people feel much happier of looking at the paintings. More paintings will make people from different countries come here to live here, and they'll love it here. Others can help by painting the streets rainbow.
Did you want to take any questions, Evie?
Would you like to answer any questions?
Has anyone got a question for our Deputy Mayor? Councillor Elliott.
Any colour?
Very flexible.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Children's Deputy Lord Mayor. Would you do this out of paint, or how permanent would the colours be? Paint or chalk? What do you like? Evie has been telling us, real Deputy Lord Mayor, that she has made rainbows before, out of chalk and out of paint, and we had a very, very vibrant discussion with staff earlier to say that the rainbows may even be projected in light, and we have a Light Up the City youth event, usually, not since COVID, but usually each year, and next year's Light Up the City, when it gets dark, we'll be projecting Evie's rainbow idea as well. So there's so many opportunities. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you so much for the children that have participated in that and come along tonight. It was fantastic. So now moving on to the rest of the annual meeting, as part of an annual general meeting, we can receive written submissions from electors. There were no formal submissions received in relation to the 21-22 report. There were, however, 7 written questions received, so I will invite those questions and other questions that may come up. So the person, I'm not sure who submitted the 7 questions. Oh, Mr. Merridew, would you like to get started? That would be great.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And before I start on the questions, I would like to congratulate Children's Mayor. He seems to be out in the corridor. For his excellent ideas of greening the city. And I noticed from the CEO's talking point or opinion point earlier this week, she wishes to open the city out, and we're all looking at doing our part to try and cool the place down. So, and the Children's Mayor might be pleased to know that my first of these matters is that bearing in mind that the Council in 2021 approved some 420 inner city apartments in the $650,000 to $80,000 price bracket. Not affordable housing, but no doubt for many investors, some possibly with Airbnb, in tower blocks ranging between 35 and 65 units sited between Bathurst and Burnett Street, very much inner city living. It's a current requirement, as I understand, if you're doing a 35-block housing subdivision, like is done in Garrington Garrington Park off Giblin Street in the brickwork side, that the developer has to provide, say, 3 blocks of land for public amenity out of the 35 development. Now, I think it would be an opportunity for the council, as the first of these 420 apartments start to be completed, the Patrick Street one is well on the way, that they were to impose what I call a green field duty. A once-only fee paid by the first owner as his or her or their contribution to providing public parks, as you had to do in Garrington in the Valley. Yep. Now, it's not unreasonable. It would probably be on a $600,000 property, say 3%, $18,000. Land tax is $7,500 each year. And that cumulatively, I worked out on the back of an envelope that would bring about $8.82 million into the Greenfield Development Fund, for the proposed one for the City Council.
Right.
Now,
would you like a response?
I just want to finish off a salient point on that, Lord Mayor, if I may. Now, where are you going to get all those acreage of spots in the city? And I don't think the pop-up concept, as UTAS were proposing along Melville, is where you would have children running like the beautiful parks we've got at Sandy Bay, without buying some property in the close-in and demolishing it. Now, there is an instant opportunity for this to be looked at by council. You've skirted around it for some years at what happens to the zoo on the domain. We know it worked very well for Dark Mona, but that made into an expansive children's park with all the sort of little cliffs and hollows and things. It could be a wonderful facility, and it's green.
Great. No, thanks, Chris. So I think there's 2 questions there, which is around the planning instruments to with this idea of a levy on multiple dwellings for open space provision, and the second part of it's around the Beaumaris Zoo site. So it looks as though Mr. Noy is the person who's going to at least start on the first one. Would you like to come forward?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor, and thanks, Chris. I know you've got 7 of these questions, and we've got a detailed response to them, so we will provide you with a response in writing to all of your questions. But to your initial question, look, there are legislative impediments to allow council to require such a contribution. That said, we are exploring possibilities through the Central Hobart Precinct Plan for development contributions on a wide range of public infrastructure, and open space is a particularly important one. We know we are challenged within the CBD, where a lot of these apartments will be constructed, and the Central Hobart Precincts Plan are developing, will outline some propositions in relation to much improved open space provision. So we are working on it. We have legislative impediments, but we hope to overcome them as part of the planning exercise. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
And did anyone want to tackle the Beaumaris Zoo plans, or whether we've got any plans or not at this stage?
Look, I'll take that one on notice,
okay.
Lord Mayor.
So, Chris, I might just see if there's anyone else from the floor who'd like to ask a question. Sharon, Sue, would you like to ask your question? Just again, go to the microphone and introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would also like to acknowledge and pay respects to the First Nations people. I think this is an alternative term for Aborigines. A lot of, countries call the Indigenous people the First Nations people. And I acknowledge and respect the past, present, and future, and also to acknowledge that this land, this beautiful island that we live in, was never ceded. Okay, and before I proceed with the question, I would like to welcome every single elected member of the new council. Yeah, every single member of them. And what I would like to see is a really vibrant, healthy culture where everybody can work together. However, having said that, this new council, 12 elected new members, was sworn in on the 7th of November, which was my birthday. And today is the 28th. So we're just about 3 weeks. And I'm very saddened to read in the Mercury 2 articles about the Hobart City Council. But I have read the annual report and I have listened to Anna's presentation. And I think the Hobart City Council have done a lot of positive things for the city. Even though I was not born here, I moved here in 1998. And from that time to now, I've seen a lot of progress in Hobart. A lot of new people come to live here, very multicultural, and me being a migrant, I find that really comfortable, I'm really happy that it's happening. So to see those 2 articles in the papers, I just want to remind every member of the public that the Mercury only wants to sell newspapers. So please read everything with a grain of salt, The Mercury cannot be compared with The Guardian or Al Jazeera. And also, I believe Hobart City Council is an organization that celebrates differences. So, whoever is unhappy as an elected member have every right to express their different opinion. You have every right to do it, and I salute you. That's highly commendable. My question is, an objective question, is it necessary to go to the media? So what do you hope to achieve Publicity is there.
Okay.
There is publicity, but I'm very, very saddened to see Hobart City Council portrayed in such a negative manner. So please read everything with a grain of salt.
Okay.
We should celebrate differences. So the question is,
Yeah.
I don't want the Hobart City Council to be alleged as a toxic organization. And if anybody thinks so, they should work very hard to detoxify it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, would anyone like to respond to that question, or we can perhaps take it on notice, I think might be good. Thank you for your comments as well, and a very important question. Any other questions from the floor? Okay, well, I might ask Chris, are you happy to maybe pick out your top next one and then have the rest just register, or would you like to go through the next 6? 2 more. Does everyone agree we'll give Chris 2 more questions? Okay, off you go, Chris. And if anyone else would like to ask a question, have a think about it while Chris asks his other questions.
It's a bit of a different novelty, giving away your ammunition before you fight. Now, seriously, the CEO Kelly, with her talking point, did, as we're all consciously aware of the world getting warmer for different reasons, and there's been several mentions of the fact that a bitumen road and plastic grass on a 35-degree day are just as hot as each other. Now, equally, dark-coloured roofs, and when you look at these photos of all these new subdivisions, dark-coloured roofs seem to be a fashion. They don't serve any practical purpose except that they absorb heat, like people used to build their houses with tiled floors to get the morning sun, and the tiles heat-soaked during the day and kept the house warm for the rest of the time. And that's exactly what a dark roof does, exactly what a bitumen road does. And plastic grass is actually your worst enemy. I would hope that the Council, without any legislative restrictions, was able to, wherever possible, put down white bitumen. It does exist. Next time you're driving down to Huonville and you start to climb up from the Sandfly Junction, you'll find that the road is actually white. And if you're driving at night, it makes it a lot easier. You actually see things. But our issue is to try and stop the asphalt roads from being heat soaks.
So that's the first question.
So that's whether that's possible.
So is it around the roofs or around the bitumen?
Absolutely all 3.
Okay, roofs, bitumen
and plastic grass.
Oh, plastic grass, okay.
Yeah, look, I'll take the bitumen one on notice because I think we are limited to some degree on what colour bitumen we can obtain from the private sector who provides all of our bitumen for our local roads, noting that state government have responsibility for state roads. But coming back to the roof question, it is a good point that you make. However, again, apart from heritage precincts, we have limited capacity under the scheme to nominate and restrict roof colour. In fact, there are provisions within the state planning scheme that exempt colour changes and roof material changes. But the point that you make is, as I said, is a valid one. We would and we do advocate for, I suppose, measures to minimise those heat loads on buildings. We've had a long program around energy efficiencies within homes. We have a home energy toolkit, in fact, that we do promote around energy efficiencies in homes. So the point that you've made is a valid one, but legislatively we have a little scope to, I suppose, regulate roof colours, unfortunately. I think that's all I can say at this point, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
And your final question, Chris. And as these will be provided, a written response will be provided, because I think we'd all be interested to hear about the white bitumen. And
Well, I think Hazel Brothers would be where I would start, because they did the road up from Sandfly. It's just a different blend in the final surface, I understand. But we are, and Mr. Noy talks about legislation and changing legislation to achieve things. We're all going through this. I mean, in my car industry, every year we have to change some environmental legislation. I was listening this afternoon on what they're going to do with ships coming into ports with the wrong sort of anti-fouling on them. You know, it's all changing. So this is the time with the council, and as your CEO writes, this is the time with the new council to start looking at things. Don't go down the same mould. And the fact with the roof is you've got how big's a house? 23 squares of off-peak heater, radiating heat all night. We're trying to cool the earth down. Please look seriously at doing that.
Yep. No, I think it's a good point.
Now, there is an area which... Sorry?
Is this your final question?
I was just addressing a reply.
Yeah.
This is an area that really does worry me, and the lady before us spoke about articles in the paper, and I have read and reread the CEO's report on the new committee structures. I call it the cabinet and ministers, but anyhow, the new committee structures, whereby it would appear with the planning aspect that this is very seriously in jeopardy, very seriously in jeopardy. As other people know who've been to council and watched the process, 42 days is when a development application is lodged with the council. At a certain point, 14 days before that 42-day period, or thereabouts, the planning committee of 5 get the DAs to look at. Now, at that point, the DA becomes public, and the Mercury might pick up and say this building is going to be built over here, that 62-metre building in a 52-metre zone is up for a DA. In fact, it was up for a 73 DA. Now, that had 3 days, the Friday and the Monday, for anybody to prepare evidence to come before Planning Committee. And I went through this one very seriously. Then, after the Planning Committee, there is 1 more week left for people to lobby their aldermen or review the plans or whatever.
Yeah.
From what I can read in the Mercury is that there is about less than 4 hours between when it comes before the aldermen collectively and when the decision is made. That's what the Mercury tells us. Now, if that's the case, I am very, very concerned for planning, because that second week, the week between the Planning Committee and the full committee, is a chance to talk to your representatives and to the planners.
I think we understand the concern about will this limit the amount of time that the public have a chance to have a say, and for elected members to go out on site visits and visit people who've got concerns. I'm happy to pass it on to, again, Mr. Noy. Yep.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. So the changes are, and I think the point you were making, that the previous arrangement went to committee meeting on a Monday. Then the committee made a recommendation to go to council the following week. So there was opportunity for further dialogue and consideration in that period. However, the issue with that arrangement was that not all elected members got to hear the deputations and the like at committee, and that's where the deputations were being received by committee. This new arrangement is effectively allowing all elected members to vote at a single committee meeting, and that all of those elected members will have the opportunity to hear those deputations, hear all the arguments for and against the proposal, and consider it at that meeting. It's also important to understand that the previous committees, the agenda maybe went out as late as Friday and the meeting occurred on the Monday. In this new arrangement of a single planning authority committee, the agenda will go out on a Friday and the actual meeting is scheduled for the Wednesday evening. So there is the weekend and 3 effective working days in which to engage with the constituents. Again, importantly, all elected members who can vote on the night will hear any deputations and the arguments for and against and make a determination at that point. Now, there's always open to the elected members on tricky applications or applications where more time is required to seek a deferral with the consent of the applicant to extend the consideration period. So with those occasional very contentious items, there will be an opportunity to extend that consideration period and defer it to the next meeting, which would normally be scheduled for a fortnight time. So I understand the concerns that you raised, Chris, but on those rare occasions where there are contentious items that do require more time, there is scope to extend that period. But generally, this new arrangement will allow all elected members to hear from the deputations, hear from the applicants, to ask the questions and then to make the determination at that meeting. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Chris, quick supplementary, is it? Or?
Noy, question of you, Mr. Noy, is do I hear you say that we've got Friday, Monday, Tuesday and half of Wednesday, 4.5 days, for the public to actually become aware of what is becoming before the planning committee? Because in the 42-day period you currently work in, there's the 4 little lines, carport at 28 Redchapel Avenue, there's another 4 little lines, hotel development 42 Elizabeth Street, and that is all the public know. Now, if the information went out to the alderman 10 days ahead, is that a crime instead of 4.5 days? Sorry, it's not a crime. Is it practical to do that in the 42-day cycle? Is it practical to put a core flute on the building that's going to be like number 30 Davy Street next door to us here? It's been approved for a 44-metre building. Have a core flute on that when the DA is first lodged by the developer, so public has got some chance to know what's coming before our council. That's my questions.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Look, in relation to major developments like that one, in fact, council has made a decision in previous years to require larger core flutes on development sites of major significance. They've also we have a major development information page on our website, and yeah, I think we've tried to raise the profile of these major developments for the public. We also clearly advertise the applications as we are required to do statutorily. So this is in addition to our statutory requirements. Major, core flutes on the development site on all public frontages, and a greater presence on our website. So I think we've endeavoured to raise the profile of those major applications, Lord Mayor.
And that happens weeks, when it's first advertised, is weeks and weeks before the planning authority meeting would be, because there's a 14-day.
Yes, that's correct, Lord Mayor. We can only publicly advertise it once we've got all the necessary information, and not before, obviously, because the information can change the nature of the application. And Deputy, you wanted to say? No, the representation period will stay at 14 days, a public representation period. Happy to take this one offline, Chris, and have a further conversation after the AGM.
Yep, good. Okay, so if there's no further questions from the floor, I'll call for a motion to adopt the 2021-22 City of Hobart Annual Report. Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Harvey. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. That's carried unanimously. And I think that is it for tonight. Thank you everyone who is interested in the work of the City of Hobart, showing your interest by coming along tonight. I hope it provided you with some information and again, thank you for your interest, and we hope to see you and stay in touch over the next year ahead. Thank you everyone, and good night. And I think there are some further refreshments, I think, so please stay and mingle with your elected members if you'd like to.